Today we're going to do another slow stitch project using some scrap fabrics, and it's going to go in my felt book that I've made, which I've showed you how to make in another video, so do have a quick look at that. I'm going to use felt as the background, and so far I've just been using greys and whites, but I want to bring a little bit of colour in, and we are going to do a bit of a sunflower. So I'm going to look at the colours we're going to use against a natural sort of brown, but I may also try the green, not sure yet. So for this you're going to need a background fabric, I'm using felt, and your scraps. So I'm doing a sunflower, so I'm looking at yellows, but you don't have to exclusively stick with yellows. Hopefully you'll recognise it as a sunflower, but it's not going to be a typical looking sunflower. So I have this yellow dress, which is very old, but I loved it at the time, but I don't fit in it anymore. So there's lots of nice yellow there that I'm going to use for some of the petals. Got a lot of green, so we're going to have some green leaves as well. I love this velvet, but it has got a stretch to it, so we'll try and use a bit of that though. Then I've got a few little scraps of yellow, got some neutral colours, got this brown which is kind of rough and textured, and I think that'll look good as the centre of the flower. Here is the gingham scrap I was just looking for in my mind. So we've got 3 or 4 different yellows, brown and green. I'm thinking that might be enough. I might even add a little bit of orange in as well, but that's very bright. We're going to start with a circle so we kind of know how big the leaves, the petals have to be. So I'm not very good at cutting, but let's see what size we need. It's going to take up the centre of the square of felt. There's not going to be much room for any decoration around it. You could do a lot smaller one and do the stalk of the flower as well. There we go. I don't think that's too bad. Okay, so I think that is probably big enough. But what I'm going to do is get pinking shears, because I got my pinking shears last year. Hardly used them apart from on Christmas decorations, so I do think this is the perfect time to use them. So I'm just going to go around the edge, so it's going to be a tiny bit smaller. There we go. So I'm probably going to use this fabric to make most of the larger petals going around the outside, and then have some smaller petals in front of it. This will actually sit on top, and I might even add a tiny bit of padding to give it some depth. Got a bit of a straight line there, which I might tidy up in a minute. Right, I've just cut a big piece out of the dress. So we need to decide how big we want the petals. I'm not going to make a template. Hopefully the first one of the first few will turn out alright, and then I'll probably use that as more of a template. So I want them slightly arched, and we want them big enough to tuck under the centerpiece. And that might be a bit short and fat, to be honest. Oh, actually it's quite long, so I might just make it a bit skinnier, although the back ones could be quite fat, and then the ones in front a bit smaller. So I am going to use that as the template and see how we go. I think we're going to need 7 or 8 this size. They're not all going to be exactly the same. Quite excited about this one already. I love yellow, I love sunflowers. I think it's going to look good. So my first lot of petals are done. I could have got away with 7, but I do want the idea of sort of overlapping petals. So you could make them all a bit thinner and do lots and lots, but I'm cheating a little bit and doing the big ones at the back, and then we'll do a few more smaller ones. Now I'm going to sew these down, and I think I will go all the way around, and I might do some slow stitching on each one of these. The ones that are going to go in front, I might just sew down the middle to give them a slightly looser effect. You could just leave it with one yellow and just embroider it and do your slow stitching. That is absolutely fine. Just, it's nice when you use scrap fabrics, because one, you're using up some fabrics that you have, but also it just gives it a certain sort of fun look that is slightly more unique. As it is, it looks a little bit basic, but you could embellish that with your stitches. So I think these need to be about half the size of the background ones. Again, I'm just going to go for it. I don't tend to use templates unless it's something I feel like I might have difficulty drawing or cutting. There we go. I think that's good. I think that's a good size and shape. So we are going to use that to create some more. It's very tempting to say, alright, I'm going to do 4 of each different colour, but we will see what it looks like. I don't want it to look too uniform. So let's use this colour now as well. I really like this colour. I think this really goes nicely with this yellow, so might not have quite as many of these. There we go. And now we're going to do some gingham, and I've just realised I've got this natural colour as well, which I might put a little bit in. Let's take the small one. That on its own looks a bit boring, but as part of the whole picture it might look okay. Okay, so I've just basically roughly arranged it, but what we want is the circle underneath, and we want to fill in the spaces in between the big petals. So let's see if we can do that. How is that looking? I think that's looking pretty good. Might pull them out slightly so they're not too small. Yeah, you see, I think those look quite good. Might do a few more of them, but just small ones. And pull the colourful ones out a little bit more. So I am going to end up with quite a bit of stitching to do. But this is the nice thing about a slow stitch project. You're just going to use the stitches you enjoy doing. You can just relax and not have to worry about trying to get the right stitch. You can just stitch away. And as I'm really a fan of the sunflowers, I think I'm going to really enjoy stitching this one. Yeah, I think 3 is enough. Okay, now leaves. Really wanted some of this nice green in. I think that would work really well. I like the brown, but I wonder if it's too close to the center colour. I want people to realise this is a different fabric. So we've got a slightly stonier one, which is still natural. Got a green, which actually looks quite nice against all those yellows. Not sure it goes with this green though. Purple. That might be quite nice. Lighter Marley purple, that also kind of works. Light green. No, I think I'm going to avoid the greens actually. Pink. Oh, this is tricky. I'm going to have a think about that. Leaves, I think they just need to be sticking out a little bit. They don't need to be massive, as long as I've got enough space to tuck them underneath. And a similar shape, I think, to the big ones. So that, I think, is the layout. I'm going to start with the back leaves, the green ones, then the big yellow ones, then all the fancy ones, then the centre, and we might do a little bit of padding in the centre. And we might do some sort of cross stitches in a darker brown to bring out a little bit more. It is a textured fabric, but it's looking a bit flat compared to the other colourful things. I have decided to swap it out for purple because it's a lovely contrasting colour to my yellows and greens. So we are gonna start with our green velvet. can see the yellow and the green are really sort of popping against the purple, which is lovely. I've got a little bit of puffiness in some of my petals, which is from not keeping it flat when not using a hoop. But I am just going to make tiny little stitches so it will be sort of flatter when it goes under the circular piece. I'm just going to have a look. There we go, yeah. This needs to be covered up slightly, as does this, but that is looking good. And it's now time to add some of the more colourful pieces. So on the yellow ones I've just done running stitch, and then I've done a bit extra running stitch. On the green ones I did running stitch, and then I did a bit of whipped running stitch to get sort of this wavy line here. So I wanted to give it a little bit of movement. I don't know if it's whether when I stitch everything down you would even sort of notice. But I'm going to do a few like that, and I might do a few fully sewn down. It's all starting to come together. Did leave the edges of the petals in the end. But you could just do very detailed sewing on the petals. Just wanted to give them just a little feel of movement. So that is the centre piece now, just about to go on. I'm going to use tiny little bit of padding, just a tiny bit. And then I think I'm going to do little cross stitches to pull it down almost so this centerpiece is a bit quilted. And then we're almost done with this one. I might do some slow stitching around the outside as well, like a little border. Maybe in green, bring out some of the leaf patterns and shapes. Right, so this won't be easy because I've got, in some areas I will have a few different layers of fabric as well as the background fabric as well as the stuffing now. But we are going to just try and do little seed stitches, I think, as though they are the seeds of the sunflower. really tiny brown beads, which I'm rather pleased with. So I'm going to see if I can get some into the holes that I've made, and also elsewhere, just maybe around the edge a little bit. Not too many, but with slow stitching you can just add in what you've got. If you've got buttons, lace, beads, whatever you feel like doing. And I have found a very thin bead needle. Hopefully it will fit these beads on. Yep, so that's a good start. I just need to see if this really thin needle, which is already slightly bent, will go through this. Not sure how easy this is going to be. Let's do this first. I don't really use beads in my embroidery. I did buy some recently, and the needles as well to sort of start, so I'm not sure on the exact best way of doing it. Do I pull it through first and then add the bead? Not sure, but we will see. The best way of learning is just trying, and slow stitching is the perfect way to sort of play with ideas and try some new techniques. I am pleased with that. I think that is giving the different colour that I was hoping the stitches would bring. And here is the finished sunflower. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I did some extra stitching with the brown because I decided actually it was a nice contrast to the yellow. So I've done some straight stitches coming out from the centre, and also a few going up the yellow petals, just to break up that mass of yellow. And then I was going to do a border, but I didn't really have room, but I wanted to add a little something, so I've done a little bee, you can see up here. When I first did it, the body just looked like a croissant, but I went with it and I'm okay with it now. And I did a little sort of white trail of where the bee has been flying, and I'm so pleased I used the purple now, because the white looks really nice against the purple. The little bee stands out against the purple, and the flower as well obviously really stands out against this background. That is the slow stitched scrap fabric flower.